breaking news from KXAN News.
A demonstration in North Austin opposing immigration policies has turned into a safety hazard. This protest was supposed to end at 7, but people are still in the area at this hour.
This is happening at North Lamar in the area of Runberg Lane. Our Grace Reader is live there where the demonstration is still underway. Grace.
Yeah, guys, so there's a lot going on right now. I'm going to move away from the camera so that we can show you what's going on and so that I can have eyes behind our photographer here. We're kind of at a standstill, and there's a little bit of a waiting game going on right here. Police have lined the street to the right, on the right side of the street here, and then protesters are on the left side of the street here, protesting immigration policies and the use of ICE. They're on the left side. Starting around 7, folks started to gather here. We had a photographer here who said that folks were here with signs, they had flags. Police asked people to avoid the area at that time, and the protest was supposed to end. Police said that roughly an hour later that folks had dispersed, but they did not. And about an hour later, around 9 o'clock, I showed up and people were in the street here. People were doing burnouts. They were hanging out of the cars with flags. There was a lot of smoke in the street. There was traffic. People were running lights. People were speeding. So there was a big traffic issue in the area here. So shortly after that, APD showed back up. They have somewhat sealed off this area at this point. People were in the street for a little while, and then APD got them cleared out of the street. I'm not sure what APD said or indicated to folks, but folks ran, and that's why they're on the side of the street here. So for a while, they were in the middle of the street. Police said something to them. They have now all rushed to the side of the street. And Aiden, could I have you turn around to the gas station behind you, please? We have just seen quite a few police officers show up here behind us as well. Probably a dozen law enforcement just showed up behind us and have now blocked off this side of the street. You can flip back around, Aiden. So we're going to continue to monitor this. At this point, again, this is sort of just a waiting game between protesters and law enforcement here as we wait to see whether this escalates or protesters go home. Guys.
All right, Grace, stay safe out there, you and Aiden. And again, that's in the area of North Lamar and Runberg there in North Austin. And tonight we got our first chance to speak one-on-one with a federal official about immigration operations in Texas. These so-called enhanced targeted operations run by ICE began about a week ago. And
KXAN's Brianna Hollis is joining us with what she's learned about this from the Vice President of the National Border Patrol Council, and that's the Union for Customs and Border Protection Agents.
Yes, I want to start with a quick explainer. ICE and Border Patrol do have the same detention power. They both operate under the Department of Homeland Security, but their day-to-day is a little different. But since ICE hasn't really answered our specific questions, we went with this route. I connected with the NBP Union Vice President, Chris Cabrera. He hammered home the notion that ICE agents are only targeting serious criminals, but that doesn't mean, he says, there isn't, quote, collateral damage.
You know, the unfortunate consequence of some of this is if you're a bad guy with a criminal record and you know who you are and you're hiding at your grandma's house and she's not legal, I mean, we can't overlook that, you know. If it's collateral damage. It's unfortunate that she'd have to go, but if you know you're wanted, obviously don't put yourself around those people because you're going to get them caught up in your nonsense.
Is there any discretion that federal officials have in a moment like that to not detain grandma in that example?
Well, you know, I mean, the law is the law.
Cabrera added the only way right now that someone would get detained by ICE without some sort of criminal warrant would be that example or without committing a new crime. And the agency is not trying to track down folks without a criminal history. He also said federal agents will take it into account if someone has taken steps to obtain citizenship.
There's different scenarios, you know, if they're in the process, if they're almost complete with the process, or they haven't even started it, or they're not even, you know, trying to. If they've been in here for 25 years and, you know, haven't lifted a finger to make things right, or if, you know, they're happen to be married with children and, you know, in the process of getting their paperwork fixed. I mean, it varies from individual to individual. It could be, you know, from one extreme to the other.
As for what appeared to be potential ICE holding facilities in Pflugerville and Taylor, Cabrera didn't know any specifics there, but he did confirm ICE is holding detainees at federal facilities across the state. He says ICE is in charge of deciding which kinds of criminal warrants to pursue. He says he doesn't know of any, quote, hard lines when it comes to those decisions, but some examples he gave us of crimes that could land someone on that list: any violent felonies, crimes against women or children, and drug trafficking. And he compared that to things like misdemeanor theft charges, which he says ICE agents are likely not prioritizing at the moment. Jen, Daniel.
All right, Brianna Hollis, thank you very much. And some of the migrants that ICE officers arrested have now been released back into the U.S. NBC News reports those released are under a monitoring program involving phone call check-ins and ankle monitors or wristbands. Now, as for the reasons behind their releases, well, they involve a lack of space at ICE detention facilities and federal court orders that forbid indefinite detention.
Pete Hegseth made a stop to the Texas border today for the first time as Secretary of Defense. Hegseth met with troops stationed at Fort Bliss who are going to provide support for U.S. Customs and Border Protection operations there.
Because we believe, and he believes, that border security is national security. Guys and gals of my generation have spent decades in foreign countries guarding other people's borders. It's about time we secure our own border.
And Fort Bliss said last week it has received about 750 active duty forces that are part of the 1,500 Army and Marine Corps troops deploying to the southern border.
Well, new tonight, Austin police are investigating a homicide from this afternoon near Barton Springs.
And APD said they responded to what was labeled as an emergency crash call involving a vehicle at Barton Springs Road and AZ Morton Road. Austin Travis County EMS initially told us they transported a pedestrian. At a briefing tonight, APD said officers found a man with obvious signs of injury. He was taken to the hospital where he later died.
Now, officers don't have any information on the vehicle or driver just yet, but they add that this did appear to be an isolated incident and there is no threat to the public. The investigation is ongoing.
First warning weather with Chief Meteorologist Nick Bannon.
All right, let's talk about the records that we broke here today. 84 in Austin at Camp Mabry beat the previous record on this day from 1911 and 2008. We also set a new record at Austin Bergstrom International Airport as well, with a high of 84, the previous record being 80. So the warmest day of the year, you could say, here today. Easy to say that, of course, when the year is yet young. Most of us outside now in the upper 60s to low 70s. Some drier air in the hill country has allowed the temperatures to drop more quickly, where we've got a few 50s. But low clouds are starting to spread in from the southeast to northwest. So it will get increasingly cloudy through the night. And by the time you're up tomorrow, gray skies just about everywhere, and even some late night drizzle. Overnight lows, though, not that low. We'll get down to 64. So we'll keep tracking this clouds in the morning, sun in the afternoon pattern, and just how long that lasts, how long the 80s last, because we've still got several more days of that ahead of a wetter and cooler pattern that arrives eventually.
All right, Nick, thank you so much. Let's head back out to North Austin. That's where our Grace Reader is during a demonstration opposing immigration policies. Grace?
Yeah, we just want to check in really quickly because those police officers that we showed you that had stationed behind us in our previous shot have now moved forward. They are in their riot gear, and you can see some of them in the shot that we've got here. Yep, they are trying to move folks out of this parking lot area, but as those officers moved in, the protesters actually ran across the street, so they're dealing with quite a lot of people right here. Again, we're going to stay on top of this. We'll continue to come back as we start to see more, guys.
All right, Grace Reader live for us there in North Austin. Thank you so much. Governor Greg Abbott says giving educators more money is now a top priority for Texas lawmakers. During his State of the State address last night, the governor also said he wants salaries at an all-time high. He didn't specify how much of a raise or how to raise it. Democratic State Representative Donna Howard said the state could raise a basic allotment for each student, but that could be costly.
If you increase the basic allotment and bring it up to where it has the same buying power that it had in 2019, the last time that we increased it, that would be $20 billion over the next 2-year budget cycle.
At this point, it's also unclear if the pay raise will be a one-time payment or continued raise. Teacher pay raises is just one of 3 emergency items related to schools. The governor also listed school choice and expanding career training opportunities as emergency items.
The Trump administration is taking its battle against diversity programs to grade schools. The president signed an executive order mandating that K-12 schools scrap lessons related to critical race theory or risk losing federal aid. The president's executive order comes after the Department of Education released more disappointing news for parents. In 2024, reading scores declined and math scores plateaued nationally. The White House says it's time to get back to basics, while some Democratic lawmakers call this order a stunt, adding that these testing scores are not the result of diversity efforts.
Our children should not be falling behind because we are too busy doing woke.
Let's focus on the real issue. I'm a real issues person. The threat right now is that our kids aren't caught up.
And President Trump is promising big changes to the Department of Education's funding during his term.
Elon Musk is serving as a special government employee for the Trump administration. That's according to a White House official. This means Musk is not a volunteer or full-time federal worker. President Trump has tapped Musk to lead the Department of Government Efficiency and said today that Musk would not act without the White House's approval. Tariffs on Mexican and Canadian imports are now on hold. President Donald Trump announced a 30-day pause after leaders from Canada and Mexico agreed to ramp up security at their borders. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says his country is going to spend more than $1 billion in new helicopters, technology, and personnel, and additional resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum says she is sending 10,000 soldiers to the border to address drug trafficking from Mexico into the U.S.
Let's get back to that breaking news that's unfolding in the North Lamar-Rundberg area. Police presence growing at an immigration demonstration. Our Grace Reader is out there. Grace.
Yeah, we just saw those police officers that we had told you about that had gathered. You can see the Burger King. Would you zoom out for me, Aiden? There's a Burger King parking lot on the right side of your screen here. That is where they started. They started to shoot those pepper spray bullets at folks, those little ones that kind of pop and pepper spray comes out of them. They started to shoot those at folks at the ground, and they were popping, so folks started to disperse. They ran across the street here over to where this Whataburger is at, if you want to zoom out again and kind of give folks an idea of what's going on. We have now seen those officers are in the parking lot of these businesses over here, and they are following protesters. It is unclear how far they have gone. We can't see them past this building where we are right here, but there is significant law enforcement that have shown up. We have now seen the Department of Public Safety show up. The Austin Police Department's helicopter is here, and as you can see from this shot, significant law enforcement. We will continue to follow this, guys, and we're going to move closer and see where those officers went.
All right, Grace, we'll check in with you again. Thank you very much. Well, at a time when a lot of federal funding is up in the air under the Trump administration, Austin area groups working on homelessness just pulled in more money than ever from a federal program.
And it's called the Continuum of Care program. Earlier today, KXAN's Grace Reader broke down where that money will actually go.
As we do stories about homelessness in Austin, one phrase gets repeated a lot.
People out here are people. There's a lot of people out here. We're all people.
And now local groups working to address homelessness will get more money from the federal government to help people. The Continuum of Care funds are one of Austin Travis County's main sources of federal funding.
And this year we were able to grow that pot from about $12 million to about $14 million.
The funding will go to 8 groups, including the Safe Alliance, which focuses on survivors of domestic violence. LifeWorks, a group that works on youth homelessness, and Integral Care, which in part serves people with mental illness. Some of that money will go toward expanding housing projects and wraparound services, including at Community First Village.
Which adds 3.5 more staff on site and will provide support for 30 additional residents. And this is really intentional, intensive support. So we'll provide wraparound case management, skills training. We have some peers to provide peer support specialists, living skills groups, behavioral health management, We have a psychiatrist on site that provides psychiatric services.
Echo says this pot of money is one our area relies on year after year, and the pot growing means hundreds more people will be helped moving forward.
A lot has been going on, and there's been a lot of conversations nationally and locally about changes in the administration and perhaps different priorities, and that we are we're just really excited that the federal government and HUD is still moving forward with this funding allocation, and we are very grateful to our service partners who are doing this hard work every day.
Grace Reeder, KXAN News.
The federal funding announcement comes after the city of Austin committed to making homelessness one of its top funding priorities last week. Modeling from Echo shows for Austin to build the housing units and shelter beds it needs, it will have to pull together roughly $350 million over the next decade. And they'll need federal, state, county, and private partnerships to do that.
Right, Nick joining us now. A warm night after a warm day.
Yeah, and it's going to be another cloudy, muggy start to the day tomorrow. We're already seeing those low clouds starting to redevelop here tonight on what will set us up for another gray morning here tomorrow with some areas of drizzle around as well. This is the view from West Campus on top of our KXAN studios, our West Shore home camera, where we're still at 70 degrees. And remember, we're in winter still here at 10:18 at night. The warm and moist flow from the Gulf is helping to produce these overnight and morning clouds, as well as make some extra humidity in the air. This is going to make for a gray start to your Tuesday with some spotty drizzle as well. The clouds may not break apart quite as early as they did today, but we will eventually get sunshine for tomorrow afternoon. So a cloudy morning, a sunny afternoon, then the clouds come back into Wednesday morning, this time with, I think, a little bit more in the way of drizzle. And some of that may actually become measurable drizzle, although still mainly very light. And then the sun slowly comes back here for Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday may be the day that it takes a little longer for that sun to come out. We're still at 70 in Austin. Temperatures will eventually fall into the mid to upper 60s to begin your Tuesday, and then not rise a whole lot through midday because of all the cloud cover. But then once the sun comes out, the temperatures jump up, upper 70s and low 80s for most areas here tomorrow afternoon. We'll go with a high of 80, which is a few degrees cooler than it was today because of the extra cloud cover that may last a little bit longer, but still a warm day nonetheless. And these temperatures about 15 degrees warmer than the average high of 65 for this time of year. And temperatures will keep slowly climbing as we head through the week, with a high, the warmest day of the week, Saturday at 85. Then a cold front comes through Saturday night into Sunday morning, knocks us down to 69 on Sunday, on a high of only 60 on Monday, which may mean that some areas don't get out of the 50s. So we're back to being cooler than average again, at least closer to normal. The air will stay muggy here through the next several days until that cold front comes in Sunday morning. That front may also bring a stray shower Sunday and possibly Monday, and also lead us into a stretch of weather that looks cooler and wetter than normal. We'll take that. Here's a look at our first warning weather 7-day forecast. If you want the sun and warmth, plenty of that as well.
This is KXAN Sports, brought to you by Thomas J. Henry.
Hi, good evening. Steve Sarkisian keeping running backs coach Tashard Choice. Well, at least for now, there's always a chance, but he interviewed for the Cowboys job. They hired Derek Foster, so Choice, one of the best in the business, remaining in UT for a 5th season. All right. One of the star Longhorns picked up some hardware today up north of the Red River. John A. Barron, the Thorpe Award winner, picked up the honor. He joins Michael Huff and Aaron Ross as the Longhorns' 3 Thorpe Award winners. Next year, he wants to be doing what his old teammate was doing tonight. That was in New Orleans at opening night for the Super Bowl. There's Xavier Worthy and the Kansas City Chiefs. Worthy's had a monster season, especially in the postseason. Eagles trying to get a little revenge. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, one of the focuses, along with Saquon Barkley. Barkley had to answer some of the typical stuff tonight. For Mahomes, well, it was about kind of Chiefs fatigue and his favorite basketball team losing Luka.
I think it starts with Coach Reed, the culture that he's built. We know it's a day-by-day process, and it's awesome to be in the Super Bowl, but we have to go put in the work every single day first, and I'm glad we're here, but it's going to be a great game. I'm excited for it.
My favorite color, I'm going to go red. Oh, maybe that wasn't a right color to say at this moment, right? Favorite Mexican dish? I don't know. Is a quesadilla a Mexican dish? It is. I'll go with that.
We're underway for Super Bowl week. Trey Johnson, SEC Freshman of the Week. Johnson, outstanding, especially on the offensive end. Tramon Mark really coming into his own as well. But Rodney Terry said today, while those guys can get lost on the offensive end, he wants them to do the same on the defensive end, and nobody is free from criticism.
Those two guys were challenged really hard in the film session, really hard in front of the whole team. And I'll give those guys credit. They really have answered the bell in terms of being guys that really work hard on that side of the ball. They're trying and playing hard as they can defensively. It's helped change our team. Prior to that, not that they weren't playing great, they just weren't playing at the level they needed to play. So no, they've had a chance to have been called out in front of the team, and they have responded.
Over on the women's side, Longhorns up to number 4 after the win over A&M. Rory Harmon affects the game in so many ways, even when not scoring, but she likes to score. She only hit 9 of her previous 38 shots in the last 4 games. 4 wins, by the way. And then yesterday in College Station, doing her thing at the defensive end, distributing, but also hitting 7 of 9. Harmon, one of the most aware young athletes, last week talked about the shooting slump, but thought maybe she was a bit misunderstood.
Yeah, apologies for making it seem like they bothered me, because they didn't, because we still ended up winning. Yeah. That's always the goal. Individual stats don't matter, really. It's the end goal, and my number 1 goal as a point guard is to get the W, and that's what we did that day. But it's nice to see the ball.